following is a podcast brought to you by the Alex Kirsch Project.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Trump's special master is proving to be a special disaster since it appears the judge selected isn't doing what Trump wants. Turns out the special master is ordering the Trump defense team to back up any claims and documents being declassified and proof the FBI planted evidence. Trump claims you can also declassify documents just by thinking about it as president. I'll explain that why it's absurd and why it's in his defense. Why is his defense team not backing it up whatsoever? January 6th simpletons are demanding that the January 6th rioters get fair treatment under the law. They thought it'd be a great idea to clog up a VA Suicide Hotline by plugging the hotline itself, putting veterans at risk. Iran is in a stage of epic riots due to the murder of Mahsa Amini, an Iranian Kurdish woman who had some of her hair revealed outside of her hijab. She was arrested and murdered by her own government, and now Iranian citizens are taken to the streets. Ohio GOP candidate Jared Majewski lies about his military service. And last night, I took part in my first support for candidate Bert VanDyke, who is running for state senator in the 25th district of Michigan, at an event in Port Huron, Michigan. What was the event? What took place? Who was all there? All of this on this week's episode of Current Events on Tap. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an episode of Current Events on Tap with your host, Alex Kirsch, a podcast from the Alex Kirsch Project. Hey, that's me, Army retiree, truck driver, pragmatic progressive, political commentator, and part-time cloud chaser, as always. If this is your first time listening, please do me a solid and hit like, share, and subscribe to my Spreaker, YouTube, Spotify, and my iHeartRadio while you're at it. This podcast gives you this week's current events, and I also do what I call the beer of the week. I pick one beer, I review it based on price, pour, aroma, taste, and then I give it an overall rating at the end. Be sure to catch me every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spreaker, and catch me at your earliest convenience on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Just type in the Alex Kirsch Project or Current Events on Tap, and you will find this podcast. Now, I'm sorry for my slight, jumble at the beginning. Sorry, it's just I started to record, but some of my recordings were like halfway through because I usually do a test run, so it doesn't sound good. So I do apologize if I'm stumbling and fumbling over my words. It tends to happen when I get a little flustered. But anyway, I hope everyone has had a great week. It was a very, very busy week for me and myself. And like I said, Claire and I have been very busy this weekend already. Did some chores outside, and basically I had to spend the rest of my time just preparing for this episode. And I tell you what, we've got a great show. Now, for those not aware, there will be expletives being dropped throughout this podcast, so I do apologize, but I'm just letting you know that's just the kind of person I am. Sometimes you gotta let your feelings fly, and you gotta let people know exactly how you feel. So there will be expletives in regards to what I'm going to be discussing tonight, because you know what? Some of this stuff hits very, very near and dear to my heart, and I'm not going to lie to you. Some of these topics are going to have me a little heated, as always. However, without further ado, it is time for
the Beer of the Week.
The Beer of the Week this week is from Lansing Brewing Company from Lansing, Michigan. The beer I've chosen for their selection is Amber Cream Ale. Now, let's go into the history of the brewery itself. The brewery was initially established in 1897. It was designed to supply beer to artisans, laborers, and tradesmen that helped build the city of Lansing, a very respectable thing. The Amber Cream Ale, as a matter of fact, was the drink of choice from laborers to statesmen. Unfortunately, due to Prohibition in 1914, the brewery had to close down. It reopened its doors in the fall of 2015, over 100 years later. It is now a full-scale brewery and restaurant. Now, Claire and I haven't had a chance to go down there yet, but we will. It's going to be on the to-do list. You can find the brewery, however, at 518 East Shiawassee Street, Lansing, Michigan 48912. And again, I plan on going to check it out because, what can I say, I'm a beer connoisseur, and plus, it's good to get out once in a while. So a little bit about the beer itself is an alcohol percentage of 5.2%, and it was reintroduced on the 29th of September 2015. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do my rating, where I rate the rating scale is based upon 1 to 5 mugs, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. So, without further ado, let's go into the rating, okay? Price, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It can be bought anywhere to about $9.79 for a 6-pack. That's not including tax. Depending on the liquor store or grocery store you might buy this in. Now, I bought this at one of my favorite places to buy beer from, Kern's Sausages in Frankenmuth, Michigan. Honestly, yes, it's not a bad price for a 6-pack because, again, I'm a sucker for craft beers or breweries, microbreweries, however you want to put it, much more than any mainstream beer that you might buy out there. For example, like Budweiser's, the Coors, the Yinglings, and whatnot. So, $9.79, it's not too bad. Not too much of a price to ask for. So, once again, 4 mugs out of 5. The pour, I'm going to go 3 mugs out of 5. It's average. There's nothing really special about it. I mean, even an amateur can pour this, and you have very, very little risk of getting that, large foamy head or anything overflowing, which it would make for a more appealing kind of beer if there's a little bit more of that foamy head to go along with this. But at the same time, like I said, it's pretty average for a pour all the same. Now, the aroma is another 3 out of 5. It has a decent enough aroma, but it smells like a standard craft beer. There's nothing unappealing about it. It's far better than any mainstream beer like Coors or Budweiser or any other mass-produced beer out there. But as far as smell goes, I mean, once again, it's just kind of fairly average. There's really nothing special about it. I don't pick up any distinguishable smells or any aromas from it. So again, I just kind of have to give it a bit average, okay? Now, the taste. It tastes a lot better than it actually smells. So I'm going to give that a 4 out of 5. It does have a very nice, smooth, creamy taste, and those slight hints of caramel, that toasted malt taste right there. It's very smooth and has a somewhat very pleasant aftertaste. It's more pleasant than most other ales that I've actually had. It definitely has a very high drinkability factor, so without further ado, it's time to take another drink out of this trusty mug that I bought at the Renaissance Festival in Holly, Michigan last weekend. It's a very cool mug, by the way. So again, yes, it has that very nice taste factor. Now, again, not a smell factor, but once again, with a taste, 4 out of 5 mugs. Now, overall, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5 mugs, okay? Now, while I usually don't like doing the whole 0.5, stuff like that, but if I want to give it an accurate rating, I can't give it a 3 because there are appealing parts about it, but I can't give it a 4 because it just doesn't score high enough, so I at least got to give it a 3.5 out of 5 mugs. While I do appreciate the history of the beer company, I would like to sample some of their other beers. This is still slightly above most other average beers. It's not bad. I would buy it again, but I would like something with a little bit more, pizzazz, something a little bit more wow factor in there, especially that something has a very interesting history like the Lansing Brewery. So, anyway, that's my final rating, 3.5 out of 5 mugs. Now, on to current events. Unless you've been living under a rock this past week, the special master that has been selected to review the case of Trump and the Mar-a-Lago search that took place for these documents that he had, which he had no right of having, might I add, of declassifying the materials is U.S. District Judge Raymond Dearie. Now, for those not aware, Raymond Dearie is a very old school kind of judge. He was brought in under the Reagan administration, essentially, approved by the Reagan administration to be a district judge. Very well respected. I mean, he's probably one of the most well respected judges across the country. And because he was selected by Reagan, Trump's thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to have this guy. He's going to have my back. He's going to be so fair. But come to find out that this guy is not a guy that's going to kiss Trump's ass. Big surprise. It shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. I mean, we're talking about Donald Trump here. He demands and thinks that everybody should be kissing his ass. That's just the kind of person that he is. However, Raymond Dearie has told the Department of Justice that by this Monday, they have to provide electronic copies, not labeled, not classified, to both Dearie That's the judge and the Trump defense team. Trump's attorneys must indicate if he is asserting attorney-client privileges or executive privileges, or if it's a personal or presidential record. Now, he is no longer the president. He no longer has executive privilege. However, he could say, well, this was executive privilege at the time, and then he can indicate whether it's a personal or presidential record. Now, there are documents that Trump and his team have to mark privilege, and then they would explain why. This is something they also must do by Monday. And they also have, both teams have until the 14th to submit a final review of all documents if they're classified or declassified. And they also have to submit logs of any disputes they might have by the 21st of October. Now, what does this mean exactly for the rest of us? What does this mean for the rest of the country? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. The fact of the matter is that Donald Trump did not have any reason to have these documents in the first place. All this is he is just trying to delay the investigation because he's trying to play it out that him is going to continue to be the victim. For some reason, he is always going to be the victim. He will never take responsibility for anything he ever does because he's never been that kind of person. Now, there are people out there going to say, oh my God, another Trump story. Yeah, it is another Trump story. Why? Because we've never had anybody that was a former president has ever done anything quite nearly as close to as bad as this. Most presidents, when they are done, they kind of wouldn't say disappear, but they go on and do other things, you know. Jimmy Carter started Habitat for Humanity, and Rosalind Carter along with him, they started like cancer treatments and whatnot. You know, Ronald Reagan went back, because he had Alzheimer's, he needed to take care of himself. George Herbert Walker Bush went off and just did his own thing. Bill Clinton, I can't remember what the hell he did, honestly. But George Bush just kind of went off and went back to Texas, did a farm, does paintings to remember every veteran that died in combat. Barack Obama went off and did his thing, basically just showing up at public events. But, all of them have one thing in common. They all kind of left in a very hush-hush case. There was a very easy, smooth transition of power. The only president that in recent history that has not had a peaceful transfer of power is this dipshit, Trump. Yes, Trump had no peaceful transition of power because he still says to this date that the election was stolen, and now he's trying to say that the deep state's coming after him for classified documents. Anytime you bring up a situation like this, what's the first thing you hear? Well, what about Hillary? What about Hunter Biden? That's all you hear from these people. But going back to the special master, the special master was appointed by Eileen Cannon, another Trump-appointed judge. Now, we don't know if there was something that, Trump was going to offer her, if there was like some sort of a backdoor deal that was going to be made. But the fact of the matter is that there was no precedence, and she pretty much, without seeing both sides of the story, granted the special master for Donald Trump. Now, I want everybody to understand something. This is completely absurd. And I'm not a legal scholar and not going to pretend to be a legal scholar, but based upon everything that I've read, there was 3 appellate judges for the 11th Circuit Court that even say that what she did was completely out of precedence. It's something that has never happened before, but yet she did it. Why? We don't know. But from all we know, she's pretty much put herself into a world of hurt, honestly. Now, when it comes down to Donald Trump and his demanding for a special master, well, he got his special master. But this special master is a by-the-book kind of person, sort of like Merrick Garland. Everybody that's blaming Merrick Garland, saying that he's been weaponized against Trump, you have to remember something. We're talking about a meticulous man that was snubbed from the Supreme Court. He was only snubbed because Mitch McConnell wanted to ensure that Obama did not get his next Supreme Court justice. Tell you what, I bet the GOP is regretting this now, especially the Trump loyalists. Because the fact of the matter is that Merrick Garland is one of the most meticulous attorney generals right now. I mean, that's why people are like, what the hell is Merrick Garland waiting on? Well, it's because you have to be right about this situation. Like, the amount of evidence that is involved in a situation like this, the evidence has to be so overwhelming. There is no other way to look at it. They have got to be right. Because if you're wrong about a situation like this, you're screwed. You are done. You lose all credibility because there is so much weighing in on this right now. Because Trump right now thinks that he cannot be touched. That's why he asked for the special master, because somebody was probably whispering inside of his ear, hey, Mr. President, you could probably get yourself a special master and then it'll delay. That's probably what he went off of, because Trump is a guy that does not like to read. He doesn't like to read, let alone the fact that we all know for a fact he never wrote any of his damn books. But the fact of the matter is that Trump probably heard, oh, if I get a special master, I'll be good to go. This it'll delay the case and whatnot. But now that the special master is being very fair, being very nonpartisan, wants to see both sides of the case and wants both sides to present their findings, is fair. 100% fair. But I got to take another drink real quick. The fact of the matter is, once again, Donald Trump wants this special master because it's only a delaying tactic. That's all he cares about. He wants to delay and delay and delay, continue to go to his rallies and project, talk about how they're not after me, they're after you. That's all that Donald Trump wants to do. But, oh, wait. The next segment talks about even something even funnier that Donald Trump has made a claim on. So Trump thinks you could just declassify documents by just thinking about it. But don't take it from me, okay? I'm not the one that said it, okay? It was Donald Trump. Donald Trump was interviewed by one of his favorite loyalists, Sean Hannity.
So let me ask you this question, because I think this is the next logical question. Because the president of the United States, you, unlike, say, Hillary Clinton in her case, right, a president has the power to declassify.
Correct.
Okay. You had said on Truth Social a number of times you did declassify. I
did declassify, yeah.
Okay. Is there a process? What was your process to declassify?
It doesn't have to be a process, as I understand it. You know, there's different people say different things, but as I understand, there doesn't have to be. If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it, because you're sending it to Mar-a-Lago or to wherever you're sending it. And there doesn't have to be a process. There can be a process, but there doesn't have to be. You're the president. You make that decision. So when you send it, it's declassified. I declassified everything. Now, I declassified things, and we were having a lot of problems with NARA. You know, NARA is a radical left group of people running that thing, and when you send documents over there, I would say there's a very good chance that a lot of those documents will never be seen again. There's also a lot of speculation because of what they did, the severity of the FBI coming and raiding Mar-a-Lago. Were they looking for the Hillary Clinton emails that were deleted, but they are around someplace?
Does he really think we are as stupid as he is? My God, this is one of the dumbest fucking guys I have ever listened to. Seriously. Trump is one of the dumbest fucking morons I've ever heard. I mean, how the hell did anybody even think about voting for this clown? Seriously. I mean, all he does is spit out word salads, and people are like, oh God, this guy is a stable genius. This guy, art of the deal. How much dick drinking do these morons have to do for this clown? But seriously, no, that's not how it frickin' works, okay? When it comes down to declassifying documents, you can't just think, oh, I'm gonna declassify these documents. I shall declassify. You are hereby declassified. It's completely irresponsible for starters, okay? So the fact of the matter is, no, you cannot just declassify the documents because you say so. I mean, even if he could, that's completely irresponsible because guess what? If he declassified a top secret document down to unclassified, that means it can be released to the public, honestly. That means we all can have access via a Freedom of Information Act request. But we can't. We don't have access to these documents. Why? Because they're freaking classified. Some of them are secret. They are confidential. They are top secret. Because not everybody in the country is privy to some of this information. I mean, there is no consistency when it comes down to those that are defending Trump right now, okay? Here's a prime example, a very, very prime example, okay? Private First Class Manning spent time in prison for stealing classified material, having it getting leaked on WikiLeaks of possible war crimes. Now, we could talk about war crimes that might have happened in Iraq or Afghanistan, right? But that's not what this topic is about. The fact of the matter is that classified material was taken. Manning was an intelligence analyst. Manning knew the rights and wrongs when it comes down to handling of classified intelligence. And Manning spent time in prison, was found guilty for a crime that Manning committed. There is no debate about this. Again, I'm not going to talk about whether I condone war crimes that might have happened in Iraq. I'm simply talking about classified material. It could be a crayon drawing of a dog and a cat playing fetch with one another. But if it's classified, it has a classified marking, it's classified. You can't just take that document out and leak it to the public, okay? It's all about the principality of the matter. Now, even Trump said nobody will be above the law. He was very specific about how nobody should be above the law. But for some reason, this clown seems to think he's above the law. But he isn't. He's never has been, and nor should he be. But it's not what the most amazing part is the fact that he wasn't asked once, not twice, but 3 times if he had any more documents that belonged to the American people. Not the public, but to the American people. Now, the fact of the matter is that he's calling NARA, this radical leftist organization, is even more absurd. This is one of the things that Donald Trump does best. He is very good at rhetoric, but never follows up with why. That's why when people say, fake news, they never say why it's fake news. They just do it because Donald Trump says it's fake news. That's how stupid some of these people are. They don't do any research for themselves. They don't do any follow-up. They just say, oh, well, if Donald Trump says it's fake news, it's obviously fake news. NARA is not some partisan hit job place that's just going to pick on Trump. No, they've been very consistent as long as they've been around. As far as the maintenance of records, Donald Trump tried to say that Barack Obama maintained millions of records of classified records. NARA debunked that. Donald Trump is not good at this game. He's very good at getting people to believe in him. But the fact of the matter is, no. People did not just take documents and not return them. That's not how these things work. What separates Trump from other presidents, like, for example, let's talk about Obama, for example. Apparently, to other members that worked with Obama and Trump at the same time, they said the difference between the two is that Obama actually dedicated the time to reading policies, reading the issues, and understanding and having understanding. If he didn't understand it, he would ask his advisors. Trump, on the other hand, doesn't know shit. Never did know shit. Like, some of the members of the Joint Chiefs were just surprised by how blatantly ignorant this man was of history. But it's just, it's so absurd that this guy expects us to believe that he is righteous, that he had every right to have these documents. Why did he have these documents to begin with? What possible logic is there for him to have these documents? It's completely absurd for him to expect us to believe that he just carte blanche said all of these documents are declassified without reading them for a guy that doesn't like to read. Even if he had all of his staff go through all these thousands of documents, I just can't fathom it. What purpose does it serve for him to have these documents? I don't get it. There really is no reason for him to have it, honestly. But it's just, they expect us to really, they must really think we're stupid or something. That's probably what it is. They must think that we are 100% stupid, honestly. But the thing is, Donald Trump, we're not dumb like you. Some of us actually take the time to see if you have the ability to own these records, if you should own these records. We just don't go by off of what you say, nor should anybody just go by off of what you say. But the fact of the matter is people are going to listen to you because they hinge on your every freaking word. They are all useful idiots. It's that simple. Now, I might sound a little heated about this, but it's just, I get so tired of these people that are defending Donald Trump, saying he's the victim here, and all they do is say, what about Hillary? What about Hunter? What about all these other people that took these classified documents? Instead of just asking the question, was like, well, you know what? Why did Trump have these documents? But that's not the kind of game they want to play. They don't want to play as like, well, Trump might be responsible. One of the things I found out recently was that in Donald Trump's White House, one of the things that he was very specific about is never apologize, which is the wrong frickin' answer. You should always apologize if you're wrong about something, but Donald Trump is incapable of taking accountability for anything. This guy is a compulsive liar. He is great at deflecting. He's great at projection, and he's going to continue to do this until he's finally held to account and shamed and hated by the very base that he has led like lambs to the frickin' slaughter. God is just so absurd. It's absurd that people still follow him. It's absurd that people still defend him. If it was anybody else, they'd get locked in prison. No questions asked. But for some reason, Trump's getting handled with kid gloves. I just don't get it. I mean, can someone please explain this to me? Can someone please explain to me why it is that Trump is getting handled so delicately? I just don't get it. Anyway. So there is a Bunker Hill, West Virginia group of January 6th rioter simps called the 1776 Restoration Movement. It's a so-called patriot movement which is described as a patriot movement for the restoration of our constitutional republic and return to a moral society, whatever the hell that even means anymore, honestly. Well, I mean, what does restoration of our constitutional republic, has it gone away somewhere? I mean, what exactly do they mean by this? I mean, I would ask them, but their Facebook page has been taken down for good reason. But a return to a moral, what does a moral society look like? Are we talking about the 1950s? Well, guess what happened in a moral society in the 1950s? There was no interracial marriage. Interracial marriage across the country and across many states was outlawed. What are we talking about in the pre-1920s? Well, before the 1920s, women were not allowed to vote. Are you talking about that kind of a moral society? What kind of a moral society are you exactly talking about? This is why there is no consistent argument in regards to this. But anyway, I'm digressing. They held a rally in Washington, D.C. to protest the so-called unfair treatment that January 6th rioters are receiving in jail. Aww. You want us to feel bad for the January 6th rioters? You mean the people that tried to overthrow our election process, that threatened to hang Mike Pence, for crying out loud? I didn't even freaking like Mike Pence, but he was still my vice president. And these people wanted to hang Mike Pence. They wanted to cause harm to Nancy Pelosi. I don't even freaking like Nancy Pelosi that much. But the fact of the matter is they were trying to cause harm to the Speaker of the House. Why? Because Donald Trump sent them to the Capitol building. But they held a rally to protest the so-called unfair treatment of the January 6th rioter protests that are in jail. But hear it from one of the guys that was speaking about it, okay? Listen to what this clown had to say.
I'm going to put up the number for the VA crisis line. So they've changed it recently, so you dial 988. They've made it easier than ever to call. So you dial 988 and then press 1. So let them know that there is inhumane treatment going on at the D.C. jail. Over half of the political prisoners in there are veterans. Most of them combat veterans, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. Let them know about the inhumane treatment and that nobody's doing anything, and that the American people expect the VA to get right in the middle of this yesterday. Thank you. Have a good day, and we'll be back, I'm sure.
Go fuck yourself. Let me say that again. Go fuck yourself, you piece of shit. He goes by the name of Justin Johnson, but this guy is claiming to be a patriot. No, he is no patriot from what I was concerned. Anybody that tries to clog up the VA suicide line for your own political benefits is an asshole. This guy is an asshole, okay? Now, there are some people that say, oh, well, no veterans needed help that day. Well, how do we know that? Apparently somebody texted the VA saying, I tried to get help after having a really bad day, and I couldn't get through because these clowns decided to clog up a VA line. What kind of an asshole do you have to be by saying, well, we've got veterans that are political prisoners? Okay, first things first, okay? If you're a veteran and you were there on January 6th to overthrow our government, you forgot the oath that you swore to. You forgot the very oath that you swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and you went there because you listened to some moron, a orange spray-tanned moron, that said the election was stolen and you were dumb enough to believe him. If you were a veteran and you were there and you took part in the riot, now, if you peacefully protested, that's one thing. I'm talking about the rioters that actually were trying to cause harm to our elected officials. You're an asshole. You're a piece of shit. And if you're in jail right now because of it, you fucking deserve it, honestly. You damn sure do deserve it. I'm not going to have any sympathy for you whatsoever. And the fact that this guy is actually trying to use a VA suicide line for his own political benefit makes you an asshole. You are hereby dubbed Asshole of the Week. Hell, I'll even give you Asshole of the Month, whatnot. Because that is an exceedingly selfish thing to do. You are putting your own personal politics ahead of the welfare of other veterans who need that veteran lifeline. They made it easier for a reason, so veterans can have access to that. I mean, I'm not going to try to speculate as to why it could be easier, but I'm pretty sure that the fact that it's only 3 digits and then you press 1, probably because some people, when they get down and get inside their own feelings, they might get a little drunk. That happens when people get drunk. They might start having regrets. They might have flashbacks. They might have PTSD moments, and they start having those moments of vulnerability. This happens. I've seen it before so many times. I've seen people have meltdowns in front of me because of some of the shit that they've seen. So dialing 3 numbers is easier, honestly, especially for people that are just not in the right frame of mind. Because I can tell you, some of these guys go through some really hard times. Veterans that struggle with the situations they've gone through in Iraq, Afghanistan, what have you, or in Syria even. Some of them have seen some really screwed up things, and they have no idea how to deal with it. They might have lost a good friend of theirs. And the fact that this clown, these assholes, would actually use the VA Suicide Hotline for their own personal benefit, I mean, it's unfathomable. It is horrendous. You are just, God, you're bottom feeders. I am so disgusted by your behavior. Why would you think that's a good idea at any point? I mean, I'm really disturbed, but these people would even call themselves patriots. I mean, the fact they put 1776 is just going to draw even more people out there that believe that we are living under a tyrannical government, which we're not, but people are dumb enough to believe these things. I mean, this group had their Facebook page shut down, and I'm glad it did, because we don't need this kind of filth getting spread out. They are entitled to spread their garbage, but when you start putting veterans' lives at risk, you're an asshole, flat out across the board. So, God, it just burned me up so badly when I saw this. So, without further ado, the 1776 Restoration Movement is Asshole of the Month. You are complete assholes, and I'm ashamed of every last one of you. You don't deserve to call yourselves Americans. You damn sure don't deserve to call yourselves patriots. The fact that you are willing to sacrifice other veterans for your own personal selfish reasons makes you Assholes of the Month. The people of Iran are in full riot mode after the death of 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini, who was detained by Iran's modesty police. Apparently, some of her hair was exposed from her hijab. Now, for those not aware, the hijab is the headscarf that women of the Islamic faith wear. So, they detained her and they beat her to death. She was in a hospital where she succumbed to her injuries. Now there is a massive uproar of people who are fighting back from this oppressive government. Women are cutting their hair. They are leaving their hair exposed in public. They are countering the modesty police. They are risking their lives. They are being arrested for showing their hair. There are men, young men, and I salute these young men for standing up for these women. I salute the women for having the bravery to stand up against these so-called modesty police. But there was a picture on Twitter I saw of a man that shielded a group of women, and he got peppered with non-lethal rounds. There has also been bonfires that have been set where Iranian women have been throwing their hijabs into the fire. I mean, it's happening all across the country. Now, it's so easy for me to talk about this. It's so easy for me to talk about my points of view. But you know what? I decided to go on TikTok, download a few videos, and share with, basically share the stories of some of these women that are living in Iran. And one of them is a Iran-Canadian politician who wants to spread awareness about what's going on in Iran. Because it's so easy for me to talk about it, but let's hear it from the point of view of those that are living it right now.
They are cutting our internet again, like they did in 2020. And we might not have internet for months. I just wanted to like share this with the world. This might be my last TikTok in a while. And they're killing people. They are shooting people directly in many different cities. And people are raging. But I'm sure that they are gonna cut the entire internet soon, and we're gonna be absolutely internetless. I don't know. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about my fucking English. Please support us. Please. Please share our message to the world. Share our stories to the world. And please don't forget Iran and Mahsa Amini.
Hello everyone. My name is Bahar and I am from Iran. I would like to ask my non-Iranian friends to please be the voice of Iranian people today. Right now, the biggest movement in human rights, women's rights and freedom is happening in Iran, while the Iranian government has shut down their internet. Again, the last time this happened 2 years ago, they killed 1,500 people on the streets in the span of 3 days. As this is happening, one of the people who is responsible for all of these murders is now sitting in the United Nations located in New York City and speaking. So please be our voice. Say her name, Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old girl who was killed on the street because of her hijab. When George Floyd was killed by the cops in the States, the whole world stood by you in solidarity. And this is a human rights issue. We're all humans. We need you. So please be our voice and say her name, Mahsa Amini.
Hi, TikTok. My name is Goldie Gamari, and I'm an Iranian-Canadian politician in the province of Ontario in the country of Canada. This woman right here, her name is Mahsa Amini. She was 22 years old. She was arrested and she was beaten to death by Iran's morality police because she wasn't wearing the proper compulsory hijab. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that the illegitimate and terrorist Islamic regime in Iran has murdered an innocent young person for just wanting to live freely. The people of Iran have had enough, and as you can see in this picture, women are burning their forced compulsory hijab as a way to protest. As you can see, this brave young woman is being surrounded and attacked by riot police just because she chose to remove her hijab. Protesters are being attacked by police just because they want to live in a free and democratic society. The terrorist and illegitimate Islamic regime in Iran has shut down the internet so that people cannot mobilize, cannot communicate, and cannot support one another in their fight against freedom. The people of Iran are relying on us to be their voice. They are asking us to share their stories, to be their voice, and to make sure that everyone knows what is going on in Iran. I've made 2 videos on TikTok, both of which were starting to go viral. The first video that I posted was starting to go viral. It had over 200,000 views before TikTok shut it down twice for violating community guidelines. Once it came back up, it was labeled as sensitive content, which means it's not showing up on people's FYP anymore. Here's my second video. Over 700,000 views, over 3,000 shares, and this has now been removed because apparently it violates community guidelines. And I'm sure that when it comes back up, it's going to be labeled as sensitive, which means it's not going to show up on people's FYPs anymore. TikTok is censoring my videos because apparently it violates community guidelines. You know what violates community guidelines? The terrorist and illegitimate Islamic regime in Iran. So I hope that TikTok will change their policies so that the voices of the people of Iran can be heard.
I'm the voice of Mahsa Amini, who is murdered by Islamic Republic of Iran. We all know that the problem is not Islam. The problem is just being mandatory of that. Today, I am the voice of 99% of population in my country to reach their voice to the UN organization and Human Rights Council. Just prove us that you exist and you are going to perform the justice.
I hope everybody understands that this is a human rights issue. I should not have to say that this is a human rights issue because it truly is. There are people out there that say that the Iranian people are a terrorist organization and they are like a known terror group and whatnot. No. It is the government that is actually the tyrannical government. It is a terror organization, essentially, that is oppressing their people. You heard the stories of these young women that are being oppressed by their government. This modesty police is completely absurd. And the fact of the matter is that this young woman, Mahsa Amini, was detained by her own government, beaten to death, essentially. She died in a hospital, and for what? Because her hair was exposed from her hijab. Now, one of these women spoke very truly about how when we watched as George Floyd, now, I don't want to hear any stories about how George Floyd had this past criminal record. That's completely irrelevant. But we saw what happened when police commit brutality against the citizens of this country. There was riots in the streets, and people understood, when is it going to be enough? Now, it could have been anybody else. But the fact of the matter is Mahsa Amini was the victim that sparked this revolution off. This is factual. The people of Iran have had enough. They have had enough of this. And they have every right to fight back against this tyrannical government. There are people out there that say, we're living under tyrannical times. Not even remotely close, okay? We got it pretty damn good here in this country. Yes, we might have inflation. Yes, we might have had high gas prices. But when you hear about people being taken because religious nationalism is telling you you're not dressed modestly enough, therefore we're going to beat the brakes off of you until the point where you're in a coma and you die of your injuries. What kind of a country is that? Exactly. What kind of a government is that? From what I understand, the people of Iran are decent, good people. But it's the government that's the problem. It's the government that tries to enforce these strict laws that basically keep women as second-class citizens. As the last woman said, the problem is not Islam. It is the problem of a nationalist government that utilizes religious ideology to infringe and harm the people of their rights. These are human rights. It's not up for debate. It is not up for debate whatsoever. So we have to throw our support behind the people of Iran because they are fighting back against an oppressive government. These people are not monsters. What's monstrous is what happened to Mahsa Amini. But what's so sad is the fact that this has happened for years. This is not the first time it's happened. You heard about the protests where 1,500 people were killed over a 3-day period. This is a serious crisis. And honestly, there's nothing I can do except talk about it and spread the message because I want the people of Iran to know that I support this. I support them fighting back against a tyrannical government that's trying to suppress them. There's no other way for me to put it, honestly. And I really do hope that they understand that there are so many people here in this country that do support them. We do support you. We do support the people of Iran in their fight against a tyrannical government. But I just want everybody in this country to understand that this is the dangerous thing about trying to make a religion the centralized focal point of your government. That's why the First Amendment guarantees that Congress shall have no laws that gives preference to one religion or restricts the free practice of any religion across the country. But if you utilize your religion to suppress others, you've got a shitty religion. Simple as that. I don't care if it's a Christian or Catholic, Islamic, Jewish, Buddhist, hedonist, or not hedonist, I'm sorry, that's not a religion. I'm sorry. It was just the first word that came to mind. Or it could be any other religion out there. But the fact of the matter is if you use your religion to oppress others, your priorities are really screwed up. I cannot stress this enough. The people of Iran have had enough. We've got to throw our support behind them. The people that are fighting back are not the terrorists. The terrorists are the ones that are basically taking young women and beating them to death. Throw your support behind them. Don't be afraid to say, I support the people of Iran, because I do. We see the oppression that goes on in other countries, And it's time for us to stop being blind to what's going on. It's time for us to all take a stand. It's time for all of us to support the people, because they probably saw the injustice that has happened in police brutality in this country. But it's time for us to show them that we have their backs just as much as they might have had our backs. So, J.R. Majewski is the America First congressional candidate from Ohio's 90th district, has lied about his military service. Now, don't get me wrong, he did actually serve his country in the Air Force. He did, however, claim to have served in the Afghanistan theater. He disclosed this on platforms like the One American podcast with host Chase Geiser. Now, here is a small segment from that.
Did you serve in Afghanistan?
Yes, I did.
How many tours?
One.
What year were you there? What years?
2002, 2003.
Wow, so you served right at the beginning.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Tough. I don't like talking about my military experience. Not that we've said too much. I really don't like to divulge a lot of things about the military.
That's nothing is more irritating than hearing some guy says, "Oh yeah, I served in the military, but I don't like to talk about it." It's kind of like these guys that, that say that they were Navy SEALs, and then Don Shipley calls them up and asks them if they were Navy SEALs, and say, "Yes, but my class is classified," or "The people I worked with, it's classified information." When guys say, "Oh, I don't like to talk about it," when they say, "Oh yeah, well I was in Afghanistan," or "I was in this country, but I don't like to talk about it," stuff like that, I kind of find that hard to believe. And the fact that it took him such a long time to remember, when was he in Afghanistan? I remember when I was in Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan from June of 2010 all the way until May of 2011. That's when I was in Afghanistan. It's very easy to remember. I remember Afghanistan very, very well. I remember every deployment very, very well. I remember most of the bases I was at, like the names of them. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, he did serve in the Air Force. However, it's come to light that he didn't exactly, see theater in Afghanistan. They actually did a Freedom of Information Act. People actually reached out. There's a gentleman by the name of Brian Solidisco. Oh, God, I can't pronounce that name. But he reached out to the Air Force, and they were able to find out what he actually did in the Air Force, okay? So, he did have active duty service. His rank was Airman E2. And his last duty station was Travis Air Force Base. His last duty title was Fleet Service Journeyman, which, for those that are not aware, it supervises and performs the scheduling and analysis of maintenance performed on vehicles and equipment. Oversees the fleet management and accounts for vehicle fleet, uses a computer to manage the vehicle data collection system, and develops local retrievals to obtain specific data, performs material control functions, and files historical data and maintains vehicle records. Basically, it's a mechanic, essentially, right? And his basic active service date was 8/11/99, August 11th, 1999, and his date was separated from the Air Force was August 10th of 2003. His awards include the Air Force Training Ribbon, National Defense Service Medal, Air Force Longevity Service, and Air Force Good Conduct Medal. And basically, his duty history was located he did his basic training at Lackland. He did his student at Lackland. And then he did his tech school in Kadena, which I don't know where that's at. Passenger Operations Specialist in Kadena. And then did his entire tour as a Fleet Service Journeyman. As far as we know, he did a deployment to Qatar from May 2002 to November 2002. And what he did or where he went from that location, we don't have any visibility on. So, no deployment to Afghanistan. I mean, let's just get down to this. This is one thing that really pisses me off. It's one thing to say that you served in the military and you didn't serve. That's something that gets under my skin. very, very easily. I don't like it when people lie about serving in the military when they did not. But it's really douchey to especially say, I served in the military and I deployed to Afghanistan when you never spent any time in that country. This guy was telling all kinds of stories about how, oh, it was really horrible. There were days where I couldn't even shower for 40 days plus. Nothing bothers me more than that. I mean, you should be proud of the service that you did to your country, even if it's in places like Qatar, okay? Even if it's places like Kuwait, or even if you never deployed, you've got to be proud about your service, okay? I'm proud of everything I did in the military, but this clown actually thinks that he's going to win people over by saying, yes, I served in Afghanistan. I can't remember when. It's going to give me about 10 seconds to tell you when I served. Oh, this is when I served from this date to this date. But he's got no proof backing any of that up. And he's going off on Twitter saying, oh, for those that are saying that I was not deployed when my grandmother passed away, I would like an apology now. No one's picking on this guy because because we're saying, oh, you weren't deployed when your grandmother died, okay? It's because you said you were in Afghanistan when you were never frickin' there. Never there. When you're in Afghanistan, I mean, you remember the places that you deployed to, unless you've got like severe brain trauma where you have memory loss. You don't forget about these things. This is the problem with stealing valor. This is the problem with people that claim to have been places where they've never been to. Nothing irritates me more than people that embellish their service. It is an absolute travesty, and it's a shame for those of us that actually went to Afghanistan, that actually experienced what happened in Afghanistan. Now, I won't lie. When I was in Afghanistan, my main job was sending artillery downrange in support of the 101st Airborne Division while I was assigned to the 2nd Stryker Cavalry Regiment. I stayed inside the wire almost the entire year except for a couple of occasions where I actually went outside the wire, okay? It was a very successful deployment because we shot a lot of artillery rounds that year. We destroyed a lot of HME factories. My section was the first squad-sized element to get the first confirmed kills against the Taliban forces and the 2nd Stryker Cavalry Regiment in the entire theater of the Afghanistan theater. It's even at the Reed History Museum if you want. My lanyard that we shot that day is still there, okay? To this day, as far as I'm tracking. But it's still there. You can find it in the pictures probably. I'm proud of that, what we did, okay? Because it was necessary. We fought against the enemy. We took the fight to the enemy with artillery, and I'm very proud of that. But don't lie about your service. If you served your country, be proud and be honorable and be honest about what you did. Don't make this shit up. Because then it's just going to come back and bite you in the ass. Because guess what's happened now? The GOP has started pulling support for this guy. So he could have very well screwed himself. He won his primary, from what I understand, and now he pretty much could have screwed himself in the election. I don't care who you are, Democrat, Republican, what have you. If you lie about your military service, you are an asshole. You should never, ever lie about your military service. I'm proud of what I did, but J.R. Majewski lied about his military service to make himself look better, to continue to get the endorsement from the last president. You never lie about what you did in the military because it will come back to bite you in the ass. I'm proud of everything I did. I say it before, I say it 1,000 times. I'm proud of what I did. He damn sure should have been proud of what he did. Because if he's not proud of what he did and he has to embellish his service, then guess what? He's just like every other douchebag that goes out there and steals military valor. Shame on you, J.R. Majewski. Hopefully this takes your entire election. Not just because of your points of view, but because you are a valor-stealing piece of shit. So I'll try to end on a much more pleasant note, okay? I'll try my best. So last night, like I said, Claire and I went to Port Huron, and we actually took the time to go to a place called the McMorran Place. The McMorran Place was holding a union-led event where what they did was they just basically had people that support unions, and it was police unions, EMT unions, firefighter unions, labor unions were all there to support certain candidates that would come out to speak, okay? Now, it was a very pleasant event when Claire and I got there. We had just had a nice meal at an Italian restaurant called Pompeii's, and then we went to the event and we met with Bert VanDyke. Now, Bert VanDyke is a Democrat running for the state senate of the 25th district, okay? Really nice guy. Really, really nice guy. I've talked to him a couple of times, and he's a very gentle person. Worked as a choir teacher for 30 years. Educator, from what I understand, a lot of students respect him because he's just a down-to-earth kind of guy. Well, this is his first time running for office, and he's running against the incumbent, Dan Lowers, because, first of all, when he realized there's nobody that's a Democrat that's running against Dan Lowers. So he put himself in there, and now he's going to be competing for the 25th district. Now, this event was fairly small. There was very, very few candidates that were actually there. But one of the other Democratic candidates was Kelly Noland. She's running for the election for the Michigan House of Representatives to represent District 63. She also served in the Army from 1986 to 1989, and she worked in the maternity ward, from what she told us. Very, very nice person. There was a couple other candidates that was there. I can't remember. I think Andrew, let's see. God, I just had the name pulled up. I'm sorry. Yep, Andrew Beeler, who is a Michigan State representative. He represents the... Sorry. Oh, crap, I just had it pulled up. Anyway, he's based out of Port Huron as well. And... Geez, he represents the 83rd District, and he basically assumed his office on January 1st, 2021. He was there as well last night, as well was a representative for Lisa McClain's campaign. Now, Lisa McClain is running for Congress for the 10th District, which is the district I'm in, and I've already discussed her before, and her opponent is Brian Jay, a person that I will be supporting for the candidacy. Now, what was the purpose for this event? It was mostly just to take the time to pay tribute to the McMorran building, and basically to indicate like what it was kind of... why it was there. Because what's really, really important for us to remember is like the significance of the building and the significance of the unions. Now, in 1971, there was a tunnel collapse. Now, the tunnel was being built to basically provide water for places like the city of Detroit. Very, very, very important, right? Well, when the tunnel was being built, there was a explosion that took place. Now, they think it was like a blowback from like natural gases that caused the tunnel to collapse. What was really nice to hear about, I mean, aside from the fact that building collapsed, was there was a gentleman that came up there and talked about how the community kind of banded together. At the time, he was working in a grocery store. And when he was in the grocery store owner said, hey, let's get some bottles of water and let's get some food and let's get it down to the first responders. And that's when he realized he wanted to be an EMT. And he's been an EMT for about 40 years now. Because they all went down there and the community just kind of banded together. Come together to save as many people as possible. Unfortunately, 17 people died from this collapse. But it was the union that was putting together this tunnel. It was the union that was putting the time and effort in to bring drinkable water to the people of Detroit. We have to take the time to realize that this is what does actually make a country good and makes a country great, is the unions that actually continue to make sure that workers do get rights and they are well taken care of. And then the sheriff of St. Clair County came up and he spoke for a while as well. It was a very, very good event. But what really made it really nice is the fact that this is the first time that, you know, my wife and I have actually taken the time to be involved in an event like this, to understand how the districts are drawn and who's the candidates and what events they are focusing on. And this was a good event, a good time to come out and just see what this is about. But it was a really good event, not just because we got to see what the other candidates were doing there, but just to kind of learn about like why this was so significant and why unions are so important. It's because there are so many people that serve, not because they're trying to enrich themselves, but because they feel a desire and a calling to serve the public. Now, that's very beneficial. There's something very rewarding about that because you're like, you know what? I'm proud that I did that. I'm very proud of what I've done because nobody wants to be an EMT to make a lot of money off of it. It's because they feel that desire, that draw to serve the public. You know, the sheriff's department, the sheriff even said, is like, there are many people that works in the sheriff's department that have this strong desire to band together, to work together, to have a strong sense of well-being, and to make sure that the community understands that we have their best interest at heart. That's so important because across the country, some people have a very, very lacking trust with the police department. I get it. Because there are some cops out there that are really, really bad. And I always say it like this, and I've heard this before, and I try to share it as much as possible. If you got a police department of 1,000 cops, and 999 of them are good, but you got that one cop that does bad things, and those other cops don't do anything about that, then you got 1,000 bad cops. It's that simple. But if you have a strong community where the cops are trusted, then you have a strong community because the cops can be trusted. And I want to believe that there is still always going to be a society where the cops can, in fact, be trusted because I do support the police so much, which is why it's so upsetting when I hear about cops doing bad things, oppressing people, or getting carried away, fist bumping after they've dislocated a woman's shoulder who's suffering from dementia. I don't want to see these stories. I want to hear about cops doing great things. But when you lose the trust of the community, you lose the rapport, and you lose any advantage you might have to gain that respect back. It takes years to gain that respect back. But I just want everybody to understand something, okay? There is a great significance in making sure that a community runs strong. A strong community is a community that succeeds. I'm a firm believer in that. Whether it's a union, police, ambulance works, EMT workers, what have you. A strong community is what makes a community successful. And the fact that so many candidates actually came out to recognize this is a strong showing that they support the unions. Now, I don't know if every candidate that came out supported the unions, but the fact that they showed up is very, very important. We have to show support for those that are willing to put their service to benefit the public. I fully support that. These are the things that we need to cling on to. I truly do believe that a strong community will always surpass the communities that don't look after one another. I mean, it's kind of like that saying is like, it takes a village to raise a child. It may not always be true, but sometimes a strong community means that we look out for one another. That's the way we should be. A community should be stronger together, not against one another. Which is why we need to invest more in our communities, to make the communities better, to make the communities stronger, make the communities more beneficial, make them benefit the whole. And no, once again, this is not a socialist ideology or a communist. It's just a damn good American ideology we should all be clinging to. Because I'm a firm believer that we could all come together, regardless of political affiliation. And I believe in that. We all can come together because we do it every single day of the week. Because when you see a stranger, you don't ask them their political affiliation unless they got a hat on that says, I voted for this person in the last election. You don't know who this person voted for. For all you know, this person could have voted Republican for the past 30 years, but they are decent, hardworking Americans that care about their family, that pay their taxes on time, that make sure their children are brought up right. I mean, we do it every single day. We do our best to make things better in this country, and we've got to continue to work together to make things better in this country. It's this strong desire that we are all pulled to, that we all cling to, that we all hope could actually continue to make our country prosper. That's my hope, at least. Anyway, I want to take the time to thank everybody that's tuned in to this week's episode. And if you haven't done so, please hit like, hit share, hit subscribe. Do what you got to do. Please, please, please show me some support, because I tell you what, I appreciate every little bit of support. I appreciate everybody that has shown me support in this podcast from start to finish. Thank you so much again, and please join me next week, next Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Current events on tap. This has been a podcast brought to you by the Alex Kirsch Project. Thank you for listening.